Lives Matter, the movement is important because it's needed, you know, like there's just so much injustice that goes on, and there needs to be a movement that's speaking up about it. And I think Black Lives Matter does a great job of uplifting Black voices and finding justice.
I believe that the Black Lives Matter demonstration and movement is a beautiful movement that's advocating for, to stop the police brutality against African Americans and not being treated as fair as others.
If you just like look at the cold facts, like, oh, slavery's over, segregation's over, then they might not understand necessarily like why the fight is still being fought by Black people everywhere. So I would probably just want to help them, I guess, understand like why what has been happening is a problem and why it is a race problem, and not just like oh, someone got killed by a cop, like it's because of the color of their skin.
The Black Lives Matter movement is important to me because, for one, I am a Black girl, and it does affect me. You know, I could be that Black girl, just walking down the street and get shot by the police or get called names because of the color of my skin.
People are dying because of the color of their skin. People are being mistreated because of the color of their skin. People have been refused basic human rights because of the color of their skin. So it seems like people are not aware that Black lives do indeed matter.
An emotion that systemic racism brings up for me is probably, it's kind of a mixture of anger and kind of fear a little, because it's like you're constantly seeing on the news like things like this happening time and time again, and basically no justice being served. So it's kind of scary, because it's like, if this were to happen to me, like would I even get the proper justice, or would they just like brush it under the rug as something that like didn't matter?
I try not to get angry. I get more so confused on how people could be so ignorant. I was raised to always help people. The goal in life is to always help people. So it's very confusing, and it like baffles me most of the time. So I try not to use it as anger, but more so in like creative ways. I use it in my acting, I use it in storytelling, I use it in my creative writing. I say, this is what happened, and I change it into a story to make it something positive, even though it's something so nasty. So I try not to let it anger me, because life's too short.
I mean, my first emotion is always anger, probably frustration that people can do these things, can say these things.
The feeling it brings me is a crazy frustration. Like, why is it still here? It's been here for a long time. It fills me with anger, but, also hope that one day it'll be over. It's some who believe, this going to be happening for forever, or eternity, for a long time. But I'm a strong believer that, one day it'll all stop.
I would say like the world wasn't equal. I would say that people of our skin color were treated very differently, and there was a lot of inequality going on. They were often murdered or framed or put behind bars for a numerous amount of time based on something that was small, and I would just tell them to be aware of it.
At some point when they're old enough to understand it, I would sit down and like, this is what happened when I was a teenager. This was the outcome. This is what you need to know, and this is what you need to do as a person. A lot of it is going to depend on what happens in the future. I hope that we come to a point where the education system will talk about it in the right way, and we'll see the movement for what it is and teach it correctly, and show this moment in time. As so much of Black history and so much of the history with civil rights, so much of that has been erased. and not taught to children in schools. And I'm hoping that we get to a point where that stops.
I want to know every single detail. I'm that type of person. So I would tell them which people I knew that was in the front line, so they can have a vivid description. I would see if I could pull up clips online. I would tell them where I was at the moment, who I was talking to when I saw it, how it all came about. I'll tell them about Blackout Tuesday. I'll tell them about how social media was a big influence on this movement. First, I would have to start with COVID. 2020 has been crazy all around. But I would just start with COVID and then slowly lead to this, because I need to set the scene of how important this is. We're in a whole global pandemic, and we have our brothers and sisters out on the front lines, even though they could get sick and potentially get their family sick, but they're out there in masks for their rights. That's amazing. That's what I would tell my children if I decide to have them.
What I would tell my children, I would sit down and tell them that, you know what I mean, it was a time in America, you know, that everything wasn't going so great. And I was scared for y'all generation, you know what I mean, that y'all would have to experience this. So we fought, you know what I mean, not violently. We fought with protesting, peaceful protesting, you know what I mean. And we fought by going to school and getting jobs.
Overall, I think I would want them to understand like how important they are. Even if things like don't change, I would want them to understand that their lives matter, and that being Black doesn't make them like any less of a person, or doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with them, or that they deserve to be treated unjustly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, always. It's an experience of like just really seeing how many people care and seeing the momentum that it's creating. And part of the whole thing is stepping back and letting Black voices be heard. So always being super aware of that, and checking other people on that, of like, you know, as a white person, don't lead the chant. Don't try to be the center of attention, because it's not about you. And it's about Black voices that should be uplifted. I am at a lesser chance of being harmed because I'm white, you know? So it's always about using that correctly.
My reaction to seeing people marching and protesting is I am like so excited, because I see all these different types of people banding together. Everyone is kind of going to protest and sign petitions and get involved. So it's really cool to see that like level of activism, because I'm hoping that it'll change something.
I skateboard, so it was a lot of skateboarders came out in Baltimore, about like 700, skated all down the city hall and was protesting. You know what I mean? That was the fun experiences. I had all bad experiences with cops. You know what I mean? I can't point out a good experience that I had. I do have one. You know what I mean? It's just one cop who always come around and play basketball with us. But, you know, when I go around, of course, I'm constantly looking over my shoulder.
When I see that happening, especially when it's my friends and family in the front lines, I just feel so empowered and so proud, mainly proud, because that's just crazy how we've been battling this for over 400 years. And to see my family and my cousins and my best friends doing this as well, it's like, wow, we are powerful. We Black people are powerful, especially when we're united. It's an amazing sight.
I think my generation is a little bit more like all-inclusive and more open to different types of people.
My generation isn't educated enough about this. I felt like if we knew more, if most of my generation actually understood what's going on, instead of, you know, just what they see on the video or on the Instagram and stuff like that, but if they actually knew how the past has slowly evolved into the present and stuff like that, and they will then that's when we would, fight back and everything.
For our children, the generation to come after us, I believe it's going to be made for them. They just going to have to read about this in the books. They're not going to have to experience it. You know what I mean? So when I see people my age, like the recent protests I just went to, skateboarding with friends, we was chanting, just skating for freedom.
This generation is handling it differently because this generation is learning from the previous generations. So we're aware that the cops are not on our side. We're aware that they don't care if it's peaceful or not. They still will try to break it up because we're a strong group of Black people. And so I think it's good that we're learning from past generations and trying to make sure people are aware that this is peaceful. You have no reason to break it up. We're making it clear that we stand for something.
Gen Z is a lot more radicalized than a lot of the other generations. I mean, just from talking to my peers, from social media, things like that, information is so much more easily accessible, and people are really exploring so many new ideologies and things. Gen Z, I mean, so many of us are just like kind of down with dismantling the whole system and doing what we can to break it down and build it back up better.
I just want to say that, like, don't be afraid to speak your opinion. You're going to have a lot of people who disagree, and mainly, like, when I be on social media, I see a lot of people, a lot of white people, a lot of white kids my age who speak on certain things that they don't fully understand or know about. So it's our duty to jump in and, guide these people who don't fully understand in the right direction to the point that we're trying to make.
It's still modern day slavery. You know what I mean? They took the chains and shackles off us, but they put it on our mind. You know what I mean? And the time we're going through right now, we breaking that and we awakening. My generation is frustrated and really just need to educate themselves more on things that's going on instead of, group thinking. You often see young people just do group thinking and don't do research for themselves.
Just stay informed and kind of know the truth, because I know that a lot of news and media coverage is biased and it's not necessarily saying exactly what's going on. So I would want my generation, or just like my peers, to stay aware kind of and realize the difference between news that is very biased towards one side and is kind of demonizing the Black community versus news that is telling the full story.
Advice I have for people my age about how they should be like living in the world and stuff, I would just say my personal goal in life is to help other people. I feel like that's the purpose of life, to help other people. And helping other people is low-key helping yourself. So it's kind of selfish in a way. So it's a win-win situation. So that's the advice I would give in general. But to do that, I would say sign petitions, help when you can, intervene when you can, and to always keep the ones who love you closest to you, because those are going to be your biggest support system. And then without family or friends that become your family, it's hard. It's a really hard life. So I really think you should keep those people close to you whenever you can. And that's my advice.
People should show up by doing whatever they can. I know when you're a kid and a teenager, sometimes it can be hard because maybe you don't have a ride, things like that. But just doing whatever you can in your power to help, whether that's even just on social media, whether that's in your own home trying to educate people and educate your friends, not tolerating any sort of racism, educating yourself, because it's always a constant learning process. You're never done learning. There's always more.
I just find it crazy how people are just finding out about this after 400 years. It really perplexes me. And my sister and me was talking about it, and we were like, yeah, it's great that this is like finally being noticed as it should, but this has been going on forever. Like, I've been having this conversation with my mother every single year since I was like 5. So it's like, but y'all just now figuring it out. And I think it's kind of interesting how, like, my white friends, they can post jokes online about Black Lives Matter, but can't actually post, hey, Breonna's killers are still out there. Can we talk about that?
I mean, just countless people that I've seen saying that white privilege isn't real, that the movement is exaggerated, the whole thing of like, oh, if this was happening to a white person, there wouldn't be any coverage, and just not really understanding. And I think a lot of that either comes from ignorance or comes from a place of not wanting to learn. You know, living in a city like Baltimore, there really is no excuse because you have so many options to be educated. You have so many chances. And with social media, you know, there really just isn't an excuse for it anymore.
One time I was on Instagram and a girl made a comment about how Black people always play the victim. She was a white girl. She said, we always play the victim and we always feel like white people are against us. And I'm like, you have multiple police officers who blatantly kill people in front of people. We have did videos of white police officers killing Black people. You know what I'm saying? And they get out free.
If I was imagining a perfect world where everyone's completely valued and completely loved, that is so hard to imagine. Because even when I pray, I just pray to God that my Black brothers and sisters or anyone stop dying because of the color of their skin. I never even pray for a perfect world because it just seems so far-fetched. I guess I see diversity everywhere and everyone being able to succeed and everyone wanting to help each other.
I believe that hope is better than pessimism. It's because, you know, having a thought, you know, that things ain't going to be right, it doesn't just do something to your political views as a whole. It do something to you as a person.
I definitely feel like my life matters, especially now, seeing how many people are advocating for my life. That makes me feel very loved.
As a white person, the thing is that I've always been told that my life matters. There's never been a point in my life where I have feared for my life for my skin color. And that's the whole point, that Black lives have been treated as if they don't matter as much. And that's why the Black Lives Matter movement is so important.
Yes, I do believe my life matters. And mainly because I have a lot of people that are looking up to me to be a change in the world and to create change in the world.
I don't necessarily feel like my life matters, but I feel like it should. I feel like it should, and I feel like it matters to like me, and it matters to my family.
My life do matter. My life do matter.